Good afternoon, everybody. It's 2:05, so we're slightly delayed, so small apologies for that. We'll start, and you're all very welcome to the launch of Quality Information for All, Numbers Matter. It's the strategy of the National Statistics Board, the NSB, 2021 to 2026. My name is Anne Vaughan. I'm the chairperson of the NSB, and I'm also your chair for this afternoon for the next 2 hours. We're very lucky. We have an excellent set of speakers, invited speakers today, and I'll introduce them all as we go along. But just for starters, to say good morning to Ottawa, and hello to Luxembourg, to Paris, and of course hello to Cork. To begin, we're very lucky and very fortunate, given how busy government ministers are. We have Minister Jack Chambers with us, who is the Government Chief Whip and Minister of State at the Department of An Taoiseach. I'm very grateful to the Minister for giving us his time this afternoon. And just to tell you a little bit about the Minister, he's the Fianna Fáil TD for Dublin West. He, as I say, is Government Chief Whip, but he's also Minister of State at the Departments of Sport and at the Gaeltacht and at Defence. He was elected on his first attempt to Dáil Éireann in February 2016 at least, general election. He was born in Galway, but moved, I think, at a young age to Dublin West. The Minister is a medical doctor, having studied medicine at the RCSI here in Dublin, and he holds an honours degree in law and political science from Trinity College. So it's a great pleasure for me to hand over to the Minister, and thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Anne, for your kind introduction, and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm delighted to open the National Statistics Board seminar, and I would like to extend my thanks again to Anne, Vaughan and the board for inviting me to say a few words. Quality Information for All, Numbers Matter is the title of the NSB's strategic priority document, and in a way that sums it up very well. The role of the CSO is to collect and compile data to provide statistical insight, and the role of the NSB is to guide the strategic direction of the CSO and the wider Irish Statistical Service. The whole purpose of official data and statistics is to provide insights, to tell a story, and in the case of the CSO, to narrate what is happening in Ireland and to put that into the broader national and international context. These insights inform the decisions made by policymakers and, more importantly, by the public. I was reading through the NSB Strategic Priorities document ahead of today, and I was really struck by something it said. It says, statistics is the powerful tool that guides us when we do not have complete information. I think this is true, and indeed, I doubt we ever have complete knowledge. However, a far greater issue is the quality of the insights and the trust that we can all have in these statistics, particularly today. In today's world, information is readily available at the touch of a screen. Some of that information is excellent, some good, and that's some of it bad or deliberately false. In that landscape, it is important that the CSO communicates the advantages of a trusted, independent source of official statistics have over other sources of information, and is really positive that there's been such progress in the national data infrastructure, but much remains to be done, especially in the area of air code use by other public sector bodies. Such coding allows analysis at a geographical level, which is key to narrating the story. For example, my understanding is that the air code capture and the current COVID-19 vaccination system is good and positive, which is an excellent sign for future geographical analyses. This brings me nicely down to the COVID-19 Data Hub, which was established in March 2020 by the CSO to support the statistical collaboration between the CSO and organisations involved in epidemiological modelling for NEFIT, and is now being extended to other health researchers. The speed at which this was up and running as a trusted, confidential and valuable hub is testament to the innovation that already exists in the statistical system and in which the NSB recommends building, no small challenge. It is great to have the opportunity during the seminar to hear the experiences and views of Anil Arora, Chief Statistician of Canada, and Mariana Cotseva, Director General of Eurostat, and I'm aware that the CSO is an active member of European and international statistical forums, and I commend that participation. There are many priorities and specific actions in the NSB strategy that interest me, and if I were to summarise what I believe the NSB is recommending, is that the CSO and the Irish statistical system must meet users' needs by providing insights in the economic, social and environmental areas, responding quickly to transformations in these areas, and seeking opportunities to use and link data in many innovative ways. At the end of the day, the information insights are all about real people, our communities, our collective and individual well-being and our environment. The government, the Oireachtas, the policy advisors and all the public want to know what is really happening in Ireland and how are people really doing and feeling. Official statistics have a huge part to play in this ongoing discourse. I want to wish you well for all your deliberations this evening, and I look forward to hearing the outcome from my officials, and thanks very much for the kind invitation.
Minister, thank you very much. I think you've got us off to a great start, and I think we'll be returning to some of the themes you have mentioned. And as I say, thank you for making yourself available, and best luck for all that you're doing at the moment. Thank you, folks. I think that was a great start. And what I'd like to do now, very briefly, is just take you through the strategy, just whistle stop tour. It's been published, so it's on the NSB website if you want to have a look at it. So just to start off, Anne-Marie, if we're good to go with my slides there. Just quality information for all, numbers matter, and it's as the Minister says, it says it all. So just to go through the next slide there, please. Are you okay, Anne-Marie? Okay, well we can proceed, and you can catch up. I suppose the first thing, yep, great stuff. Good, thank you. Just to recap on what we do, I think most people tuning in will know. Just go back one there, Anne-Marie. Sorry. Okay, we're having a little bit of a difficulty with the slides, but anyway, don't we won't worry about that. Just what we do is we guide the strategic direction of the CSO, and we establish priorities for official statistics. That's great, and we assess resources available. All of this is set out under the Statistics Act 1993. And the important thing here is, I suppose, we're the strategic wing. We don't have the Director General, Porrick, who's a member of the board, has all obviously the governance and the operational responsibilities and all of that under the Act. So the relationship between the NSB and the CSO, how I would see it is it's a supportive role, but it's also a challenging role. And there should be a healthy tension between us. And I think there is, and I think that is good. So just moving on to the next slide, which just tells you who we are. And you can see it there. And all I would say about this is I would say this, I suppose, wouldn't I? It's a good group. It's a good mix of people. Meaning that we have good experiences, both economic, social, environmental. People here are producers of stats, they're users of stats, and that's what's important, and it is to get that balance. We have a good, I'd say, tension between ourselves within the group as well, which is good. I'm privileged to chair it. My own background is that I'm retired Deputy Secretary of what was Employment Affairs and Social Protection, and obviously very much involved in policy advice, but also a big data holding, and we might come back to that. We're assisted. Every board needs a good secretary, and we have that with Claire. And just to acknowledge that. And the trick with any board, doesn't matter what board it is, trick with any board is to be more than some of your parts, and I think we are. So just next slide there. Grand. So we come to the strategy. It covers 2021, 2026. It's addressed to the CSO and all the Irish statistical system. So all of the Irish statistical system is the CSO plus official bodies that collect data, and plus the seconded statisticians, who are, I think there's about 34 seconded statisticians to other government departments and agencies. All of them collectively, this strategy is aimed at. The strategy builds on previous strategies, and I should absolutely acknowledge the work that's gone before us, both board members and, in my particular case, the previous chair of the NSB, Dr. Patricia O'Hara, and the work that she did with her boards at the time. It builds as well on what is happening out there in the CSO and the ISS work. Strategy has to be connected operationally. Doesn't matter what you're talking about, it does. You can't just have strategy that can't be grounded. The way we ground it is through the ISS. And I think the Minister mentioned the COVID. I think you only have to look that far to see how innovative and how quickly the CSO and related areas were able to come together to provide insight and data quickly. And the final thing, the strategy is informed, the board was informed by good stakeholder engagement. And I think that's very, very important. We had an online survey questionnaire and we had a good response to that, but also Claire and myself would have met over 30, as we saw them, key stakeholders, just to hear what people are saying. So just the next slide, Anne-Marie. Grand. So just to recap on the vision and values, I'm not going to read it all out, but the vision talks about a world-class system of official stats, and basically which informs an understanding of Ireland's society, its economy and its environment. The values are written out there: independence, objectivity, confidentiality, and I'll come back to that, and that it meets users' needs and is user-friendly. All of that is, you might say, yeah, motherhood and apple pie. It is the bedrock on which everything that is done by the statistical system builds, and it's where you lean into if there are issues that you're not sure about. So vision and values are really important, and this vision and values, they haven't changed, might be slightly tweaked, but effectively they're the same as what was in the previous strategy, which is what I would expect. I don't expect vision and values to change for what we're talking about. Okay, so just moving on to the next slide. And I'll tell you about the strategy itself. Great. Thank you. First, there's just a small number of slides here, and the first priority, and we talk about it a little bit, is communications. And what I mean here, you will see trusted source, quality, citizen focus, confidentiality. They're all of what we have just spoken and seen in the last slide. But what we're saying here is there's a need for the CSO and the statistical services to communicate this, to say and tell people, and it's like everything, you can't over communicate, you must tell people again and again and reassure people that you are a trusted source, that it is quality, timely, citizen focused, and the confidentiality that is guaranteed under the Statistics Act. It needs to be said, you're in a very crowded and competitive area, if you like, at the moment. So moving on, that's fine, thank you. I suppose the next thing we talk about in the strategy is monitoring transformation, monitoring change, and we look under three themes of environment and climate, and a lot of what we know there is that we will need, users haven't, it's not clear yet, all of what users' needs will be for data. But for the moment, I think there is a need for linking of data and greater granularity of data in this space. In theme 2, under the economy and business, you guys all know this. It's how things are changing and how they're changing so quickly. The digital world and all that globalization and all that stats have to I suppose tell the story and tell it as well as possible. Ideally, what you want is that the CSO and the ISS are up to speed with all the changes and ahead, if you like, of the changes as well, anticipating what users will need. Labour market, quality of employment, future of work, all extremely topical, something I spent a lot of time on in my previous department, and obviously the future of work in post-COVID. So we need to know what's happening there. Issues in relation to productivity are also, and how productivity, how we measure it, what it means in the changed environments is all very, very important. Team 3 is well-being and social cohesion. And again, a lot of work has been done. Previous strategy spoke a lot about this, and certainly there have been very, very good changes in this area and publications and that. And it's important, I think, again, it's all to tell a story about social cohesion, about the kind of society we have in Ireland and how it's changing, and issues around inclusion and exclusion. And it's not all at the macro level. Certainly we have to see what it means for communities and for individuals. And finally, just to touch on health and social care. I think that is really important. It was a challenge pointed out in the last strategy, and I think it is a challenge still. And again, a very difficult time for the Department of Health as it happens at the moment. But this is something they are committed to. And really it's that a framework is provided that gives and tells the story as to what the outputs and what the outcomes in the health area are, both at a global but also at an individual level. And there is, I think, a lot of work to be done there. But again, I think the COVID-19 hub that is produced purely obviously for COVID at the moment, I think provides a way and a good example as to how we could go forward in this area. It's certainly something that the board will be watching. So just turning then to the next priorities, just one back, Anne-Marie, I think. I just want to very briefly talk about the national data infrastructure. Again, this is bringing administrative data holdings together and linking them so that we can have greater insight. And it's from the PPS number and from the employer identifier, and also from the spatial or geographic identifier, which is the air codes, and the minister mentioned air codes. A lot of work done here, but a lot of work, as they say, to do. And I just want to just for a few seconds talk about the air codes. Some areas in the private sector, this has been adopted. We absolutely know all this from all the doorbells that are ringing in the current thing with all our packages. But in the public sector, it hasn't been as quickly adopted. And this, what we're saying here, is two things in particular. One is that we are recommending that public bodies just ask for the air code where an address obviously is required for the service, etc., but just ask. And bodies, for example, the Passport Office, have made very good use of the just ask and have a high percentage of air codes in their database. The other piece that we're suggesting is that DEC, the Department of Environment, Climate and Communications, look at the feasibility of the air code becoming a public good and free to users. I suppose a lot of things were said to us by stakeholders, but one of the things that came through was the desire for more geographical knowledge. So this obviously would support that. The use of big data I think, and I think one of our speakers later may say a little bit about this, but this is something we feel that the CSO and statistical services should pursue with the private providers and, as appropriate, in consultation with the Data Protection Commissioner's Office. Finally, just on data confidentiality, again, it's the cornerstone of what statistical offices do. One of the things the stakeholders said to us was there is a certain amount of confusion out there sometimes about what data holdings they can transfer to the CSO. And again, I think there's a requirement for the CSO to be very clear and explain to producers of data what exactly I suppose the guarantees are under the Statistics Act, and also there may be again a need for discussion with the Data Protection Office. Okay, so just moving on to the CSO, very brief comments here. We would like to see, and I think it is to a certain extent, but I think it always can be improved. I'd like to see the CSO and related entities as an employer of choice. It is fascinating work, but again, for data analysts and all sorts of people, there's again a lot of competition for their skills with the private sector. So it is up to the CSO to maintain its profile and be seen as an employer of choice for statisticians and related people. Seconded statisticians, I mentioned these earlier. These are the Irish government seconded statisticians to the other government departments and entities. I see them as having a huge role to play in getting the CSO's message out there in the future and delivering both the CSO strategy and our strategy for statistics and for the future. I was, in my previous existence, I was the beneficiary probably of the first seconded statistician, and certainly it worked really well and continues to do so. That brings me nicely to a point just about the seconded statisticians and the IGEES, which is the Irish Government's Economic and Evaluation Services, and another large group of very qualified people in government departments and in the Department of Finance and in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. What we feel here is that they really have to work together as a group and with the other policy analysts. And again, it's more than the sum of the parts. That's what's here. Just a reference to the Irish Statistical Code of Practice. At the moment, only, I think, the Revenue and the Department of Finance for one part of its data have this ISCOP, if you like, Q mark. And what the NSB feels is that all large public data holdings should have this. And I would encourage the Secretaries General of those departments to look and get this code. It's not easy, but no Q mark is easy, but it's what they should be striving for, I think. We will keep an eye as NSB to the resources, both of the CSO and statistical services, both the people and obviously the technology. And data stewardship, this just to say that the CSO supports, or that the NSB supports the CSO in its role as data steward, which means being the standard bearer for other statistical outputs, and I suppose supportive of researchers and policy people out there. So to conclude, why do we do all this? Remember the vision: to be a trusted source to tell the story of what's happening in Ireland, the environment, the economy and society, to inform and provide quality information to policymakers and advisors and everybody else, the public, all of us, because numbers matter. And just the last slide then just gives the websites for where you will, if you want to write to us, or on the link to the strategy. So thank you very much for that. It's a whistle-stop tour, but hopefully it gives you some outline of what's in our strategy. Thank you very much. So now I would like to introduce one of our first guest, who's Anil Arora, who is the Chief Statistician of Canada. One of the benefits of virtual meetings is that we get to meet people that perhaps we mightn't have if we were in the real. So just to tell you a little bit about Anil before I invite him to make his presentation. As I say, he's the Chief Statistician of Canada, and he was appointed in 2016. And he's an experienced senior public official, having worked with Stats Canada for over 25 years. And he's also served in policy and regulatory roles in the Government of Canada, Natural Resources Canada, and Health Canada. He has substantive international initiatives and has worked with the UN and with the OECD, and has received numerous prestigious awards for leadership. He has received a Bachelor of Science from the University of Alberta and had subsequent studies in computer science. He holds a graduate certificate in public sector management and governance from the University of Ottawa and the Government of Canada's Advanced Leadership Development Programme. It's a great pleasure, Anil, to meet you, albeit virtually, and I look forward to your presentation. Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister, Board Chair, Padraig, colleagues, it's a real pleasure to be with you this afternoon, and thank you, Anne, for that very warm welcome. Padraig, this does not get you off the hook of inviting me in person to come see you. I've always wanted to come there, so this is a very poor substitute. I just want to put that on the record. It is a distinct pleasure to share a few thoughts with you on the occasion of the launch of the NSB's strategic priorities for official statistics, and I want to congratulate you for this exceptional work. In my time at Statistics Canada, I've enjoyed a long and close relationship with the Central Statistics Office for well over 20 years now. Padraig, I've known a few of your predecessors. Padraig and I have had many opportunities to see each other and collaborate in various international fora. And I have to highlight that his leadership on the international stage is exemplary and influential on multiple domains. And I thank him for that. We work alongside a group of chief statisticians who are actively steering the modernization of their respective statistical agencies and the statistical system as our role evolves from simply providing data to providing a multitude of data services for the benefit of our citizens. So I want to congratulate you once again, you, the board, on releasing an impressive 5-year plan that accommodates an increased demand for quality data in Ireland. Canada faces many similar challenges, and many of those you could substitute CSO and put Statistics Canada, and it would apply equally. My remarks today will outline how Statistics Canada is modernizing its operations to meet our citizens' evolving data needs. And we have found innovation, communication, and collaboration to be essential along this path. And my hope is that we will continue to learn from each other and inspire each other and even incentivize each other as our countries move past pandemic response to post-pandemic recovery and growth. So the first idea I wanted to share with you today is that innovation has been critical, essential to our ability to stay ahead of changes in society and technology. And my career at Statistics Canada began in the late 80s, as was mentioned. After 21 years in different positions within the agency as a data provider, I took on senior policy and regulatory roles in other government departments as a data consumer. And I would say having a user perspective of what data we produced and shared was vital as we began entering our rapidly accelerating data-driven digital era with an expanding ecosystem of data providers and consumers. I think you all would agree we live in a world where data come from more sources and move continuously in all directions now. Our citizens have a greater need than ever to find data that they can trust. That's why we are evolving rapidly to provide more timely and detailed data, as well as more analysis, more storytelling, deeper meaning, and insights to assist decision makers, be they governments, businesses, NGOs, students, parents, pensioners, you name it. We're playing an important role as convener, bringing together partners from the private sector, academia, and civil society to responsibly share data and information with each other using good standards and robust methodologies. So about 4 years ago, I announced our Modernization Initiative, and we embarked on an employee-led journey to transform our infrastructure, our methods, our culture, and our operations. And at the heart of this is a massive mindset change. The sheer volume and variety of data all around, as well as a voracious appetite for more timely, detailed, and integrated insights locked within them, makes it essential for us to gradually shift away from our traditional survey-first approach to data collection. We need to experiment to better leverage technologies and partnerships and to deliver greater value in a society saturated with data and yet hungering for good information. It still lacks accurate, high quality, trusted information. Volume does not automatically turn into good statistics and insights. We, as an authoritative, independent, and trusted body with 100 years of experience, had to step up our game to increase our relevance and deliver greater value. Put simply, we knew we had to innovate or risk becoming irrelevant. So our agency developed a modernization agenda built on 5 pillars. The first pillar involves shifting our focus to becoming more user-centric. We implemented world-leading methods for integrating data from multiple sources. Then we scaled up our statistical capacity in our infrastructure. We shifted our governance, our training and development programs, resource allocation, and incentive structures to incentivize greater curiosity, to be able to take intelligent risks, to facilitate ideation rather than to stifle, and to become better connected. We ourselves became more data-driven in our own decision-making and less subjective. And we've played a leadership role in a competitive data market, both within and outside government, as we've forged new partnerships to collect, analyze, and share data-driven insights with Canadians. To put the 5 pillars into practice, we developed some large-scale Pathfinder projects, as well as some small-scale experiments. One of our 5 Pathfinder projects takes its inspiration from the European Union, in fact. In 2018, as cannabis was on track to be legalized in Canada, we adopted Europe's pioneering method of analyzing wastewater to measure traces of illicit drugs. And this pilot project, which incorporated crowdsourcing surveys, resulted in more accurate estimates of drug levels in various cities, so governments could compare legal versus illegal consumption of cannabis. We're now using wastewater analysis to estimate the rates of opioid use, which is another public health crisis that Canada currently faces, as well as levels of the COVID virus itself. Another project was to expand the use of administrative data sources in our housing statistics program. And that has allowed us to track foreign-owned residential properties, gain better insights on owner characteristics and urban sprawl. It's dispelled myths, and it's also allowed in targeted areas municipalities and other governments to introduce measures to curb some of those aspects. We also turned to agriculture and found alternatives to surveys there. We use satellite imagery and data provided to us by crop insurance companies to provide models that allow us to estimate crop yields virtually in real time without farmers having to fill out a single questionnaire. At the same time, these methods now enable farmers to get their insurance claims processed faster after a drought or a flood. So it truly is a win-win for us and our partners who share data with us. We thought we would need until 2022 to replace the crop survey with administrative data, but the pandemic in fact accelerated those plans, and we achieved that goal last summer, a full year ahead of schedule. All of these projects have benefited from the innovation ecosystem that our agency developed and continues to refine as we modernize. The ecosystem is built on the idea that innovation is not an end state. It's a mindset of continuous improvement, of learning, applying, and relearning, with the goal of developing new solutions that bring together greater value for our Canadians. We provide seed funding and a proactive, nurturing approach to removing obstacles rather than stifling risk-taking and experimentation through layers of the hierarchy in our committee structure. Our ecosystem is neither top-down nor bottom-up, but an environment where ideas flow freely, where there is an internal marketplace linking user need with talent, data, and a robust infrastructure, where we bring challenges and opportunities to talent in the form of hackathons, bringing in internal and external expertise and data, where we incentivize curiosity, even to make marginal improvements, where success and failure are replaced with learning logs and multidisciplinary teams that can iterate and embed graceful landings. Innovation is now, I would say, a core part of Statistics Canada's culture, but we didn't expect the COVID-19 pandemic to put our innovations to the test so quickly, frankly. COVID-19 has unquestionably been a tragedy of human suffering on a global scale. It forced our agency to scale up quickly and rethink many of our processes and products so we could be more helpful and responsive to Canadians' pressing needs. Fortunately, our efforts to modernize our operations and our investments positioned us well for the pandemic response. And the pandemic has in fact accelerated our transformation. First, our employees immediately began working remotely to respect public health measures like everywhere else. They tracked price fluctuations without stepping into a single store. They measured employment trends without interviewing anyone on their doorstep. We launched a new data collection method, such as crowdsourcing and probabilistic web panels, to gather insights from Canadians about the social impact of COVID-19 on their everyday lives. And they responded, 500,000 responses to a single crowdsourcing invitation. And we now release monthly flash estimates of high-frequency economic indicators, such as the GDP. I understand that your CSO is, of course, again, exploring ways to provide these estimates. We realized that providing perfectly accurate information just after it was needed was not helpful. It is better to be timely and generally right than to be absolutely precise, but perfectly too late. Speed is of the essence in effective pandemic response. In the middle of a rapidly evolving crisis, those who can see opportunities and challenges sooner act faster. Our partnerships have evolved over the pandemic as well. We found we have increased our reach and our influence as we rose to meet our partners' urgent data needs. Last spring, we collaborated with Canada's largest business advocacy group, the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, to examine the impacts of the nationwide economic shutdown on our firms. The result of this initial survey shifted our relationship with the business community. Where our surveys were seen as invasive and burdensome, businesses are now seeing value in the data we provide them and want to participate. In the early months of the pandemic, this information was vital in providing the Government of Canada with the information needed to design and implement emergency income support programs that have helped shore up the Canadian economy. Businesses continue to rely on the results of these quarterly surveys to adjust their operations and outlook in response to the economic uncertainties created by the pandemic. The Government of Canada has recently made significant investments in our work on the environment and social cohesion. I understand these are priority areas for the CSO as well, as you outlined in your program. Canadians are calling for a greener future, so Statistics Canada is now developing a world-first census of the environment. It will integrate ecosystem and socioeconomic data to provide a detailed picture of Canada's natural resource assets, enabling informed decision-making on interventions to rehabilitate, protect, and enhance our natural surroundings. Many Canadians have also been speaking out about their urgent need for detailed data to bring the social and economic impacts on marginalized groups into the heart of decision-making. We are answering that call to action with a plan that will provide Canadians with the detailed statistical data that are currently lacking to address gender gaps and systemic racism so that we can bring more fairness and inclusion to decisions that affect us all. Disaggregating large data sets according to categories such as ethnicity, gender, region, income level, or a combination of these and many other factors can and are revealing important differences in the experience of particular groups. Many of you working in key areas of social and economic policy and programs would no doubt find innovative ways to use disaggregated data to improve evidence-based decision-making in Ireland. We've made another important realization as we modernize our operations. How we communicate matters more than ever. Again, another priority for you. As more people consume news from a dizzying array of sources, we must ensure our citizens have access to credible facts. Governments, the media, and civil society groups play a crucial role in countering disinformation by telling all sides of a story. And we must communicate information in language, formats, and media that are easily understood by all citizens. If we don't explain stories that resonate with our citizens, we jeopardize our relevance. If we don't point to specific data and outcomes, our citizens will question the value of our work we do for them and turn to less quality sources. If we don't communicate how we are making a difference, our citizens will tune us out. So we are now doing more stakeholder outreach and proactive media engagement. We're incorporating storytelling into our communications, and we're experimenting with other ways of engaging Canadians in our findings through dashboards, explorers, etc. We've much to learn from Ireland on geospatial data visualization. Your work on this front is truly world leading. We developed our own Canadian Geospatial Explorer to give Canadians an interactive way to look at what's happening around them, down to neighborhood levels. It also gives vaccine delivery planners a richer portrait of priority areas, filling in characteristics on demographics and even pre-existing health conditions. We also developed a COVID-19 dashboard, similar to your COVID data hub that you mentioned, to give citizens different windows into the evidence they need to make informed decisions. These helpful dashboards and visual interfaces, plus over 100 analytic papers that we put out in just this past year on the impacts of the virus on our economy and our society, have all extended Statistics Canada's traditional reach by 2, 3, and even 4-fold during this past year. But as our value to our citizens grows, so must our sense of responsibility to them. Communication is not just about telling people what we do with their data, but involving them in ways that increase their trust in a digital and data-driven world. One of our Pathfinder experiments gave us valuable insights in this regard. In 2018, we proposed pilot projects to evaluate the use of administrative banking data and credit transactions data as alternatives to conducting surveys to measure household spending and consumer trends. Before we even began the project, we heard from Canadians loud and clear that they thought we were going into this sensitive area without sufficient consultation or support. So I suspended the project and we began working with the Privacy Commissioner's Office and with international colleagues to redesign these projects. Numerous lessons resulting from this experience are shaping our path forward. Now, we are engaging Canadians proactively, deliberately, and consistently before we collect information on their behalf that is sensitive. We have developed a world-leading necessity and proportionality framework and are applying it widely now to all our programs. And I believe it will increase access to alternate sources of data that were previously locked out. We developed a trust center at Statistics Canada on Statistics Canada's website to provide Canadians with clear information on how we do our work to deliver greater value to them. We've strengthened our governance system with an external expert committee on ethics, trust, and privacy. And we've articulated an ethical framework for collecting data based on the principles of necessity and proportionality, something that is paying dividends as we further our data science, artificial intelligence, and machine learning investments to create greater efficiencies and garner deeper insights. Our frameworks will open up even more sources of data, allowing for timelier insights and greater transparency and trust. They also open a window for us to play a proactive role as data stewards, promoting standards and classification systems and responsible data sharing and linking. This brings me to the final point I want to make today, and that's about how collaboration allows us all to go further and faster. The pandemic has significantly accelerated data sharing around the world. We've seen scientists, academics, different sectors, and all orders of government come together to share research findings and data as quickly as possible to better track and tackle the pandemic's unique challenges. To keep the momentum going, it's critical that we establish a common language for data sharing and common spaces for sharing with each other. Standards are that language. They are the invisible glue that holds society together. They have the potential to yield new and innovative services, improve regulatory efficiency, increase trust through responsible data sharing, and in turn, allow us to see sooner and act faster as we move from pandemic response to recovery to growth. Canada is committed to advancing standards. Our government established the Data Governance Standards Collaborative in 2019, and I co-chair this group of more than 300 thought leaders from the public and private sector, Indigenous governments, academia, etc. We're about to release a roadmap of that standardization landscape, identifying duplication and gaps to better determine the standards needed to enable smoother, safer data sharing in areas such as open banking, health services, and even our nation's food supply chain. We're also fostering collaboration with our virtual data labs, which empower researchers and data science network for public services, service employees that promote the benefits of using new data sources and automation. And we're collaborating with you at the moment. Our way forward is very much interconnected. Statistics Canada is supporting the CSO's upcoming session on the core value of official statistics for the Conference of European Statisticians in June. We look forward to continuing to work together on many, many fronts. There's great value in teamwork, in leveraging the ideas that already exist so we can all start from a point that's closer to the finish line. I want to conclude by expressing my pride at being part of this statistical community. NSOs provide timely, trustworthy data and insights that are an essential public service, especially during mission-critical moments like the one today. We also play an important data stewardship role that helps keep our societies functioning. Our strength comes from our services and our expertise, and as such, our most valuable resource is not data, it's our people. I don't want to put words in Padraig's mouth, but I am confident he feels the same way. I'm in awe of how our employees have responded to the challenges of the pandemic, but we have seen the pandemic's impact on mental health in Canadians we survey, and that certainly is true for our staff as well. There are challenges to measuring well-being in all its forms, including mental health. We must not forget to also offer the right support and create a caring, inclusive environment in-house. So thank you again for inviting me to collaborate and to celebrate with you today. I once again congratulate you on an excellent report. I wish you great success in the course you're charting for Ireland's future and look forward to working and continuing to work in partnership. Thank you.
Anil, thank you very much. It's absolutely wonderful to hear and inspiring, and also it's very good we can link and see what we are doing here, and it is teamwork, and it is great to be part of the community, as you say. Folks, we are going to take a short break, coffee. Unfortunately, we can't meet each other, but we will be back at 3:05. I think. Let me just check that. Yep, 3:05, and we will proceed again. But once again, Anil, thank you very much. And please, folks, any questions, put them in the Q&A. And Anil is staying with us. Thank you, and we will have the questions in the session at the end. Okay, folks. So see you very shortly. Thank you. Hello, folks, and welcome back. I hope you had nice coffee and croissants, which in the future, hopefully, we will have again. So, just to tell you, we have over 160, I think, participants, and to encourage both yourselves and my fellow board members to please raise any questions in the Q&A. So just to start off again, I would like to welcome our next speaker. Next guest speaker is Dr. Arla Quinn. Orla is the Secretary General in the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment, and she was appointed in October 2016. Prior to her role, she was Assistant Secretary and in charge of reform in the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform. And prior to that, she was in the Department of Employment Affairs and Social Protection, where she was the pensions expert and headed up the EU International, and also was head of HR. And prior to that, she worked in the Department of the Gaeltacht and Arts and Culture. And most importantly, for what we're talking about, I think Orla began her civil service career in the Central Statistics Office. So you can see she got off to a good start. Orla is a former visiting research fellow of Trinity College. She holds a master's in public management and a doctorate in governance from Queen's University. Obviously, we were colleagues in a former existence, and I'm delighted that Orla is here today. So Orla, I look forward to your presentation, and over to you. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Anne, and good afternoon, everybody. And I'm delighted to be here. And as you rightly said, I started my career at a very early stage being told about the importance of statistics as a very junior systems analyst and a person who once deleted the census and had 10 heart attacks until I realized there were things like backups even in those early days. So I think, look, throughout my career, data analysis has always been important. So I really welcome today the publication of the National Statistics Board's new strategy. And I certainly thought reading it, you know, it's extremely comprehensive and it covers such a huge remit. Interesting and very welcome, I think, was the process that you had for the development of the strategy. And indeed, my own department, Enterprise, Trade and Employment, fed into that, along with all the range of stakeholders across the public sector and more widely. So from my perspective, I can say the priorities are timely, they're far-sighted, and the challenges that are facing the production of official statistics are very well described. I think the vision of the new strategy for a world-class system of official statistics using the best available data for high-quality, timely, independent, readily accessible information is really important, and each of those words, and I'm quite sure you thought long and hard about each of them, are hugely important. For us as senior civil servants, I'd like to say we fully support that vision, and we'll work to realise it with you over the coming 5 years. I think the strategy emphasises the important role of the CSO and the statistical system, and in the areas, again, that you have so wisely set out in terms of that trusted independent source of data, the relevance of it in terms of the changes that we are seeing, and then really importantly, and I hold the innovation brief across the civil service, that linking of data sources in an innovative way, obviously in line with statistics, the Statistics Act and GDPR, but again, that ability and the availability of statistics to give us insights that we have not had before, and I think that's really important. So I thought today I'll spend some time talking through some of these themes and how the civil service and my own department plans to support them, and how we can work with you. So I think that the COVID-19, I suppose I can't speak at any event without mentioning just the work and the pressure of COVID-19 and the challenges that it has created for us, obviously in Ireland, but right around the world. So the circumstances I think that we found ourselves in quickly, working remotely, but really for government to respond quickly needed a huge surge across all of our sectors on innovation, on digital and on whole of government. I think it's true to say, and it has been remarked on in the past, the civil service responds very well to crisis and we work collectively, and I think we've seen huge evidence of that in responding to the pandemic. And so while we're facing a whole range of challenges, and many of them impact on my own area, you know, be it climate change, sustainability, all of the geopolitical changes we've seen in recent years, demographics, again, very close to my heart from my pension days, as you pointed out, housing, healthcare, all of those require us as a civil service to be agile, resilient, and give the best advice to government. And I think in providing that advice, we can only provide advice based on evidence and based on data. Technology, again, huge cause and accelerator of change, but also a cause of uncertainty for us. We're producing at the moment, and almost finished it, our national AI strategy for Ireland. And again, underpinning all of that will require technology and will require data so that we can transform public services. And I think we've certainly made it very clear that we can do that when adopted by the public sector. And I think we've shown that throughout a whole range of government departments, not least social protection in recent times. So I think while significant progress has been made over the last decade in upgrading our infrastructure, delivering our online services and ensuring effective data usage, I think we certainly recognise we still have a journey to travel. And I think COVID-19 highlighted the art of the possible, but also made the case even more strongly for that fully digital customer experience. We're aiming to accelerate the delivery of online solutions across the civil and public service within a clear framework to deliver digital services by putting in place the enabling systems, the culture and the collaborative arrangements. Within the Public Service Data Strategy 2019 to 2023, we're already working on that and implementing solutions, but we want to deliver a more joined up whole of government approach to how data is used and managed within the public service. And its implementation will put government in a better place to provide services by providing more joined up, more integrated, end-to-end digital services. And a subject close to my heart in particular, better processes for policy formulation and evaluation. And obviously overlying all that, improving protection and transparency of personal data. And we have seen the recent examples where that is just so critical and so important to us all. So I think the Data Governance and Sharing Act 2019 provides the legal basis for us, and I think the CSO have been to the forefront in promoting and pushing that data sharing between public service bodies. Last week we saw the launch of an ambitious 10-year civil service renewal strategy out to 2030, and it sets out a range of commitments that are driven by a need for clear direction for the future, but also responding to today's environment. And again, like yourselves, it's resulting from an extensive consultation process, which is informed by experience and expertise. And having formerly held the remit of civil service renewal, again, it's one that I feel strongly and very dear to my heart. But it's centred on 3 action plans, which I think align very closely with your new strategy. First and foremost, delivering evidence-informed policy and services. Secondly, harnessing our digital technology and innovation. And thirdly, and on which we are most reliant, building the civil service workforce of the future and the organisation. And so within that, and as a member of the Civil Service Management Board, I'll be working with my Secretary General colleagues and with Pádraig Dalton to deliver on these action plans over the coming years. But underpinning it all, and the first one I think is really important, that evidence-informed policy and services. And the data that we produce is really, really important, and the quality and the ability to stand over it. For ourselves, and again, looking at confidentiality, we produce two major surveys each year, the annual employment survey and the annual business survey of economic impact. In those two surveys, we work very closely with our enterprise development agencies and with our statisticians, and we have always benefited from the placement of CSO statisticians in our organisation, and it brings great value and great coordination and coherence to us, and great expertise, which of course we always need. So it's a core priority for us in terms of trust and trust of our data providers. And very much like yourselves, we are custodians of a very valuable asset, and how we handle and use data has to adhere to our core values of integrity, honesty and transparency. We're in the privileged position to be able to receive data from so many people and businesses, but that is contingent on their trust in our ability to store and process data in a way that is both safe and lawful. And informing the public about why we collect data and how we manage it is very much intrinsic and is part of the insights-driven decision-making priority in the civil service renewal, and very much underpinned by your strategy. So we feel we're very aligned with the National Statistics Board. Security highlighted as one of the three key values identified, and more important, as we face more integration over the coming years, not just in terms of delivering goals, but in particular in underpinning trust. I think the GDPR framework introduced in the EU in 2018 has done a lot to help us to put in place robust mechanisms. And the lessons we've learned helps us in using our data right across the public service. Government departments, I think it's true to say, we're not just a source of information on issues such as the economy, the labour market, but there are now an increasingly crowded market of organisations publishing data in these areas. I see it quite a lot as well in the trade space, where we are responsible for Ireland's national trade objectives. I think we have seen, and I think it's well known, that not all this data is of a reliable quality. And not all of these organisations are transparent in their objectives and their processes. And yet, sometimes we see official statistics produced to our very high standards receiving less attention in the media than poorer quality data that sometimes will give a headline or give a headline title. So I think as producers of official statistics, we're privileged in terms of the role we have to collect them. But we're also really strong in terms of our adherence to national and international standards. And so for us, I think there's a role to communicate to users the level of quality, the reliability, and the independence in particular of official statistics. And I know certainly CSO guards their independence, and really importantly so, to ensure that they and we are a go-to organisation for that reliability of information. So in this regard, certainly my own department is committed to implementing the Irish Statistical Systems Code of Practice for official statistics, and all statistics we publish will then be under the ISS COP logo. I'm conscious that what's important sometimes as well is not just what we say, but how we say it. And so people are subject to such a flow of information, constantly increasing in terms of volume and velocity. So I think we need to challenge ourselves as to how we present data, how we embrace new modes of communications, and indeed visualization, which I think CSO have taken a very leading role. The use of infographics, dashboards, really effective tools for framing a narrative. We collect data ourselves, as I mentioned, in terms of our agency client companies, but we use it to evaluate performance and effectiveness of our enterprise policy. And we have been making this data now more accessible to the public and to researchers. And we now publish with infographics all of our annual statistical reports. With the help of CSO and using CSO data, we've developed a dashboard of over 60 indicators across the areas of employment, enterprise, innovation and COVID most recently, and we published this on our website. But we've also used it in terms of our digital platforms, and we are now the department with the highest number of users on LinkedIn, which we concentrated on and have gone from 10,000 stakeholders in January 2020 to 50,000 now on LinkedIn alone. We obviously use other channels as well. So I think it's important that we think about how we produce the data and how we use that information. So I think in terms of what CSO has done in recent years has been a great example to all of us. And again, look forward very much to further examples of it. But even in most recent times, and as a member of the COVID oversight group, I think some of the data produced in terms of the infection rates, the income supports, population mobility, areas like that have been hugely helpful to government as they have had to make hard decisions in the last year. And I think certainly the data has underpinned and supported those decisions. So I think for us, we have to be grateful for the agility of the CSO to respond to those data needs in a very agile way. We've worked with you across a whole range of different areas, obviously in terms of the economy, but in terms of trade. We've made good progress in reporting on our goal 8 of the Sustainable Development Goals, which is focused on decent work and economic growth. The other area we work with colleagues across the civil service is on the national data infrastructure, again being led by CSO to promote integrated analysis and to unlock the potential of our administrative data. And I think you called that out very well in your strategy. We really welcome the rollout of the unique business identifier as part of the national data infrastructure. It'll allow us to link business data sets across the public service, and it'll allow us to facilitate new research and analysis that we haven't been able to do before. So we will continue to participate in the National Data Infrastructure Champions Group with CSO and other bodies to advance this really important work. I think also since 2018, we have geocoded companies and we've obtained air codes for those companies also. And again, that entails getting location coordinates, but it allows us then for the data to be mapped, and it gives us a really strong richness of data as well. We obviously will continue to engage with Eurostat, other international organisations such as the OECD to ensure we're following best practice. When I was looking back on your strategy, the last time you had a strategic priorities in 2015, it's when we look back and just see how much has happened in the 6 years since then. We've had seismic geopolitical events, global pandemic. I have no doubt the next 10 years will bring further challenges, but hopefully not on that scale and not on my watch, I hope I can say. But certainly to be ready for the challenges, we do understand now much better the need to embed agility and innovation in our organisations. We also understand the importance of being responsive to our environment and our user needs, and in particular, the importance of a joined up whole of government approach to responding to those challenges. And I'm really pleased to see that those fundamental values are at the core of the National Statistic Board's new strategy. So can I close by wishing you all every success with it, in scale of ambition, in scale of delivery, and I very much look forward to working with you in the delivery of it in the coming years. Thank you very much.
Orla, excuse me, Orla, thank you very much. That was very insightful, and from the point of view of a producer and a user of statistics. I also just note you've thrown down the gauntlet to the other Secretaries General. You're going to be the next in line for the Q mark, so that's very good. I think we'll hold you to that. So, and again, folks, don't be shy. Put in any questions you have for Anil or Orla as we're going along. So our final speaker this afternoon is Dr. Mariana Cotseva. Mariana, you're really, really welcome. Mariana is the Director General of Eurostat, appointed by the European Commission in 2018. And she's not only the first Bulgarian Director General in the European Commission, but also the first woman at the helm of Eurostat. She joined Eurostat as a special advisor in 2012, and prior to that, she was head of Bulgaria's National Statistical Institute. She's also held a number of high-level consulting posts in Bulgaria and foreign administrations, and led international projects with the United Nations and the World Bank. Mariana has a master's degree in economics and a PhD in statistics and econometrics, and she's Associate Professor of Statistics at the University of National and World Economy in Sofia. Mariana, you are really very welcome, and thank you again for taking the time to address our seminar, and I look forward to hearing your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anne. Dear colleagues, thank you very much indeed for invitation. In my obligations as Director General of Eurostat, I have two very dear moments to my heart. One is when the National Statistical Office celebrates a birthday or anniversary, where I have the opportunity to be in touch with the colleagues and to see how much they have been done. And the second moment is when I have invitation and I have the pleasure to be with you when such strategic documents or important events are taking place in the countries, such as launching of the strategy for official statistics for 21-26 for the Irish statistics by the National Statistics Board. Because why I like this moment, because this is very inspiring to always read strategic documents, but it's also very inspiring when you have good strategic documents and I could use ideas which are shared in these documents, in the events, in the discussions, and put forward them to the attention of the whole European statistical community. So that's why it's my pleasure to be with you today. We are living in challenging times, and as a previous speaker mentioned, there cannot be a talk today without mentioning COVID-19 outbreak, because it certainly has shown that in the future and now and in the future, resilience, agility, preparedness, anticipation, innovation are factors which are absolutely essential for our economies and societies to continue thriving and to go through challenging times. But also the COVID-19 outbreak also highlighted the importance of reliable and timely, but also trusted official statistics and data, which could be used for combating the pandemic and its adverse economic and social implications. So in that context, of course, the role of strategic documents and the need to really analyze what is going around, to see the place in the future, to set out the priorities and to channel the projects, the actions and adequate resources to achieve that is becoming more than necessary. And in Ireland, you are really fortunate to have the National Statistics Board that since its establishment in 1993, if I'm not wrong, has guided the strategic directions of the Central Statistical Office and official statistics in Ireland. It has established priorities for the future. But I am happy that the previous speaker, the Secretary General, you mentioned the process. Because I also, when I look at the document and the history of the development of the process, this is something what as an outsider to the Irish society I have noticed as well, and based also on my comparative knowledge about other countries, how inclusive the process was and how many stakeholders have been involved. And at the beginning, I was saying to Anne that I'll be very happy if every statistical office in European Union countries and at European level we have such kind of inclusive process and such an active National Statistical Board, because it's very good to listen from the outside, from the users, from the stakeholders, in order to find the right path for us, for official statisticians, in order to deliver our mission to provide relevant information which is needed for the countries and for the Union as a whole to proceed. So I was invited today, and of course this is my natural contribution which I could do, to look at the strategy and priorities which have been set in the context of, in the broad European context and in the context of the experience of other European countries. And then I am very pleased to see again that to work in statistics is a privilege. To work in statistics is a privilege because official statisticians, regardless where they live, they face the same challenges, and this creates the basis to find common solutions. And when you have the common targets and you have to find similar solutions, you could only benefit from the experience of the others, and you could benefit if you collaborate and find some of these solutions together. In that respect, I would like to highlight 4 priorities from the Irish strategy, which I think are priorities for every European Union statistical office and for the statistical community as a whole in Europe at European level. The first one is what was clearly set in the strategy, that our main priority should be to remain to be a trusted and independent reference point for statistics and data on the country and on Europe in general. In order to do that, the second priority, which is extremely important, we have to stay relevant, which means that we have to stay watchful of the society transformation and to provide the data which are needed to take decisions, to inform the debates in the countries. And also, I would like to put to the relevance the timeliness, because this is going to be not only a characteristics of the crisis, but it's going to be a demand, a characteristics of the years to come. The third priority, which I would like to share fully at European level, and I'm seeing this in my talks with all Director Generals of national statistical offices anonymously, is that we are aiming, we are striving for tapping the potential, the full potential of new data sources, of all possible data sources, of linking them with traditional data sources in innovative ways, and to tap new technologies, while at the same time we are aiming to do that in full respect of confidentiality and privacy issues. Because one of characteristics of today's society is that privacy and confidentiality concerns go hand in hand with the opportunities which are provided by the technologies. The fourth priority, which I wanted to highlight and to share from the Irish strategy, is about putting an emphasis on communication. All my colleagues in the Irish Statistical Office know that it's very dear to my heart, because this was one of the first things what I started to speak about when I had the privilege to be selected to be Director General of Eurostat, is that it's not enough to produce statistics and data, because until this data and statistics do not reach the users, if they are not used, our mission is not complete. Because only when our statistics are used, when you see the value added of these statistics, how the numbers are turned into decisions and how the numbers are communicated, used by people in social media, and they are referred to in different societal debates, this is the only moment in which we could say that our mission is complete. So with having these general 4 priorities, I want now very briefly also to touch because this is unavoidable, several domains, topics, which are becoming increasingly important these days, and which also are in very comprehensive way covered in the Irish strategy. But I would like to mention them because they are high on the agenda of many national statistical offices, but also high on the European Union statistical agenda. Let me start with something what I think I always, when I have to go to Ireland, I mean not physically, although it's a pleasure to go physically, I always find that very inspirational, the work which you are doing on social aspects. The work which statistical offices work on is doing on social statistics, and I have seen recently and also in the strategy the focus on better measuring or providing information on well-being, on housing, on social cohesion, on the impact of technologies or globalization on labor markets, for example. So in general, not to go in details, of course, my purpose is not to make a comprehensive overview of all thematic debates, but just to say that maybe as a result of pandemic, but also as a result of digitalization and globalization and many other big trends and demographic trends as well, like was mentioned by Secretary General, then this broad field is appearing high on our European agenda to see how we could respond better to providing statistics in, broadly speaking, social area. I am tempted, because I'm a statistician by background, I have worked in different areas of statistics all my career. I cannot mention population census because this is a challenge for any statistical office, but now we have even a bigger challenge to prepare the census of the future, because as you know, we have talks in the Union, but also in the context of the United Nations and also with colleagues outside the EU, like Canada is an excellent example, about the future of the census, because we cannot live anymore in a world where we have to wait 10 years in order to get enough detailed data for population and its composition, way of living, geographical distribution, etc. So this is really a challenge. We are currently going through the wave of population censuses in the countries. Tomorrow I am speaking to the conference in Latvia. Latvia will be the first country in the European Union which will announce the results. They manage, despite of the pandemic, mainly because their population census is based on administrative data. But I am already looking for the future, to learn from this round and then to really prepare a system of population censuses which will be of modern type. In addition to social statistics, I wanted to mention another big area which is related to the high priority of all the countries in the European Union, the so-called European Green Deal, and all the emphasis which is put on sustainable development goals, on sustainable economies. And then if I could make it a little bit more generalized, I would say that if economic statistics has been most advanced in official statistics, the social statistics has managed to catch up. I think it's time for environmental statistics in general in the relation to the sustainability and Green Deal in the coming years to get par with the other two big pillars, economic and social statistics. And we had, you know, that in the European Union context, we had approximately every 3 months our official committee where director generals and presidents of statistical office are coming. But during the pandemic, we started to realize that we need to meet more often via video conferences. And because we need to discuss more and more this kind of strategic issues. And then in the last meeting, which was 1 week ago, one of the big topics was exactly what will be the contribution of official statistics in Europe to the European Green Deal. Because this is not a simple question only how many more statistics we could produce and timelier. This is also a question, what is the role of official statistics in cooperation with the other government bodies and research institutes to provide data and insights on environment. Because as you know, in that area, it's not only statistical offices who are involved. And also this is an area which involves quite a modeling, analytical tools, which is not something what has been integrated in official statistics for many years. Then very quickly, the other two and the last two domain areas which I wanted to highlight is about digitalization and measuring of the welfare. Anil mentioned about the impact of crisis on mental well-being, but I know that we were discussing with Statistics Canada and in the context of OECD and United Nations that we also, in official statistics, we have to put an attention on the impact of digitalization in general, on the welfare, on the labor market, mainly on our societies, on inequality, on the future of generations, in particular on children, on youth. So this is something on which we would be very happy to, let's say, to coordinate and lead European statistical system together with our good partners outside European Union in order to develop that part of statistics impact on digitalization in order to provide useful insights. Ladies and gentlemen, I have still two main, let's say, elements in my intervention. One is related, in addition to these priorities, which I read in the Irish strategy, and I would like to share with you that these are priorities of the European statistics as a whole. I would like to highlight other three, I would call them horizontal. I don't know whether you like this as a native speaker, as native speakers, but infrastructure or organizational priority, these are three. They are covered in one way or another in the Irish strategy. They were highlighted in the presentation by the Chief Statistician of Canada as well. They are not new for you, but I would like to emphasize them. The first one is the point about innovation and agility. So the difference is, and I would like now to bring you to the word of the European Union, you know, which has been built in statistics for many years, 60 years, in fact, on idea that we should have a legislation, a legal act, which we are crafting for 5 years usually, in order to start producing something what we could deliver in 2 years, which in total leads us to 7 years of make-up process from the moment when the data need arise to the moment when we could deliver statistics which is comparable across Union. And I think everybody will agree that we cannot be relevant if we continue like that. So therefore, of course, without denying the importance of the legal acts, I think, and we we actually found that this is the way during the crisis. We had a leadership club of Director Generals of Statistical Offices. We identified some priorities. We agree on a voluntary basis to work together, and we go ahead without legislation. Of course, we have the general legislation, the mandate, etc. But we had to do many innovative things very quickly to learn from each other, to do the same in the same countries. Just to give you an example, when we were confronted in the first days with issues, how to measure inflation when the shops are closed, how to measure labor markets. And I remember my phone talks with Patrick when you are not able to do interviews because people are in lockdown. Then we have to find a way methodologically to find common solutions, quickly bringing together the best experts from each country to issue methodological guidelines by Eurostat, because we are coordinating part, and then everybody to follow these guidelines in order to have comparable statistics. So this is an example of innovation in practice, that we have to be innovative, but not formalistic. We have to be based on partnership, on quick reaction, and to benefit from the expertise of our experts. So this is what we would like to sustain, to see how, in addition, of course, to the institutional and legislative framework, which we have to respect, we have to develop the innovation agenda in the future in order to be more agile. My next, so I said 3, my next horizontal priority is about, I will call it using the new data sources and new partnership, where the crucial question for the European Union in the moment for the official statistics is access to data. Access to privately held data, access to administrative data, access to new data sources. And 1 week ago, we had this committee meeting, and anonymously, 27 Director Generals agreed that we have to make a joint position, a joint kind of document, where we'd like to stay to communicate at national and European level that is becoming an existential question for us to get an access to data in order to stay relevant, to be able to link this data, to produce statistics. And then what is even more important, we decided that in this position paper, we would like to state that, of course, we will do this with all the necessary framing in the way we have done this for 100 or even more years, respecting privacy and confidentiality, respecting the response burden, taking, as Statistics Canada is a very good example of the framework of necessity and proportionality, that every time when we go to ask the private sector or to new data source owner for getting data, which of course involves costs, it's a burden, we will go carefully through the analysis and we will assess and we will put the right mechanism in place. In that context, it's also very important, I think the previous speakers mentioned this, to speak about the role of official statistics in preserving confidentiality and privacy. The GDPR regulation, data protection regulation, created a new environment for everybody, but also for statistical offices. But I couldn't agree more with the previous speakers who said that we have to speak. Official statisticians, we have to speak with the data protection authorities. We have to demonstrate to the citizens that their data are stored, are processed, especially when we are interacting with secondary data sources, when we are not collecting the data, because this they know. But when we are using secondary data sources, that we are protecting this data, and how in practice we are doing this in order to get trust. Because without the trust of respondents, we are not, we will not be able to do our business. And the third priority is about the new role of official statistics in the emerging data-driven society, European data-driven society. It is also touched in different ways in the Irish strategy. I just wanted, and the concept of data stewardship was also very well illustrated in the presentation by Chief Statistician of Canada. I just wanted to say that this is very important and we have to find our role at national but also at European level because just few examples which I also learned from the Irish experience, building up on the traditional role of statistical office to be setters of the standards in the classifications in the national context. Now to that we have to add the new examples like was illustrated by Canada to participate in data governance bodies, to develop standards which are related to digital world, which like standards for open data, for data sharing, for interoperability, etc. Another very good example from also from Canada, because this was also in presentation, but also from Ireland, is about this Pathfinder project, where you try to find new places, new gaps where statistical office could be useful, and could be useful in particular way, bringing different data sources together, linking them and providing additional insights. All to mention the secondment of Irish Central Statistical Office experts to different departments. I remember I was visiting Ireland exactly in the time when Patrick and the senior management of CSO was thinking to launch this, and you are not sure because it was a pioneering initiative whether you'll be able and whether this will be efficient. And now I see the result, and I see that this has been appreciated. So on this new role, to conclude that we have an opportunity now, and we could just benefit from the national experiences to find the best role for official statistics in the emerging data ecosystems. I would like to conclude with one topic, and let me formulate it like this. In working excitingly on retaining our relevance, on adopting new strategies, new techniques, being innovative, we need to be careful and not to forget the foundations and our core values. Staying true on our core values as independence, impartiality, respect of privacy and statistical confidentiality, timeliness, punctuality. I'll stop here. This staying true on these values is essential for us to stay relevant in today's world. And European Statistical Governance Advisory Board, that issues every year a report, made a very strong recommendation, which I think is very useful to the European official statistics, that we have to work on. We should not forget our essential core values, but we also have to communicate effectively them. Because we know our values, we respect them, they are enshrined in the fundamental principles of official statistics, in the European Code of Statistics Practice, in national codes. But in today's society, it's even more important to speak about this than to do it, because this is the way to gain trust of the users and to stay relevant. With that topic, I would like to conclude, to wish every success to this very inspiring strategy, and to say at the end that we have a privilege. We are fortunate to live in the European Union, in the sense that I am very often making reference, and some people consider this as a joke. If you want to see European Union in practice, you have to come to official statistics, because official statistics is based in Europe on partnership of national statistical authorities and Eurostat, is based on the common discussion of challenges, of finding common solutions, which are learning from each other, joining forces to solve common issues, and then doing all this at the end driven by the needs, demands, information demands of national society, but also a European as a whole. So I think I am very happy to call you to continue to be an active member of the European statistical system, the whole Irish official statistics, and to bring in this way collectively the whole European statistics together forward. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mariana. That was fabulous and affirming of what's being done here, and also the challenges for the future. We are nearing our close because we're finishing at 4 o'clock. But I would like to. We have a number of questions, and I would like to put those. Anil, one that is for you perhaps. It just says, is Statistics Canada planning to produce statistics and addressing the social foundation and ecological ceiling measures proposed in the donut economy vis-a-vis sustainable development? So basically what your plans there are. So Anil, thank you.
Well, thank you, and for that. And for the person that submitted the question, of course, the theory there is that up until now, any growth is good, and so just keep on producing, and scarcity of resources will lead to abundance of solutions and so on. And clearly, I think after the 2008 crisis, and again shown in the current crisis, that lives and livelihoods, the environment, and the economy, our health and social well-being are all interrelated. And so there's a lot of encouragement of policymakers, both fiscal and monetary, to start to enlarge the framework upon which they make decisions, so that they take the their interrelations between these aspects, and also put a time element, if you like, in terms of growth in our environment, and next generation and their prosperity as well as ours. So coming back to roles of statistical offices, every one of these learning moments defines for us gaps and opportunities to better communicate with policymakers, the things that we didn't put enough emphasis to see because we just didn't have the data source or didn't have the granularity to be able to get at where some of those gaps existed, or two, to be able to produce it and provide it in such a way so that you could get at that interrelated nature. Now, some countries have taken that even further and said in their budgets, like the recent budget that was announced by New Zealand, for example, that it's now mandated in a sense that they're going to look at the integrated nature of these things before they make decisions. In our context, again, coming back to the role of the NSO, clearly we don't set fiscal or monetary policies, but we're into the world of how do we provide more granular data. So that's what I think I mentioned in my opening, the census of the environment. So we're now putting a lot more emphasis on what are those measures of our ecosystems, our natural environment, so that they can have that value that can then be looked at in relationship to development or rehabilitation or recycling and so on. So we're doing some in partnership, as Mariana has mentioned, some work on plastics and recycling, and that economy, and how is it producing. Obviously, the SDGs are another classic example where NSOs have to actually play that sharper role in the data ecosystem to be able to say, no, we will be the official providers of these metrics and the indicators and the data sources and the quality that's underlying them, so that it is that independent, trustworthy view that is separate from policy making or politics, so that you can provide what's actually happening on the priorities that a government may put in ways that are standardized using global measures. And then the last thing I would say is that we are in Canada working on taking the lead on defining what are quality of life indicators. So there's so many frameworks out there, as wellness indicators and wellness frameworks and so on, and every country has to figure out what makes sense for them. But again, it comes back to creating that indicator set and under a framework that is defined by the government and policymakers, and ensuring that the elements, the actual indicators and the actual data sources are robust enough so that they show decision makers the interrelated nature of society, lives and livelihoods, the social, environmental, and economic aspects of growth. And I think it is having an impact in Canada for sure. That this pandemic has shown that when you have huge data gaps, like not knowing what the impact of the pandemic is on populations, marginalized or vulnerable or racialized populations, or certain sectors of the economy, or the impact on the environment, that there's a huge price that we pay. So data do influence policymaking by actually showing phenomena that would have otherwise been less suppressed. We do in fact influence where policymakers act. Being able to see it sooner allows them to act faster, and providing those integrated and linkage environments I think provides policymakers to be more conscious of both the intended as well as some of the unintended consequences of policy decisions. So all those investments that the government's making. In our case, the recent budget set aside well over $250 million for Statistics Canada over the next 5 years to fill some of these gaps in data that allows us to see clearer and to integrate these sources so that we can make more informed decisions. So yes, it's absolutely happening in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Anil. Just time for one more question. Etna, would you like to ask your question? Because I think it's very relevant. Thank you.
Mariana, you talked about GDPR and about necessity and proportionality. And as you know, our strategy talks about the challenges of GDPR. Would you be able to point us to any area in Europe, any country in Europe, which has cracked this, or where we could learn more about how to reconcile the demands for more statistics and more insight with the demands of GDPR?
Sorry, Mariana, you're on mute.
Sorry, I apologize. I was so excited about the topic that I started immediately without pressing the button. What I just said, thank you for your question, because this is really very important topic. I remember the moment when GDPR was supposed to be introduced in 2018, I think, and we had an emergency meeting of Director General, as I remember, in a cold February day in Luxembourg. And then we were thinking, as usual, whether we should find a common European solution at European level, or we could leave it to the countries to find national solutions. And then we discussed, and then as a general conclusion, we have found that yes, we always could exchange best practices, but the national let's say institutional setups are the driving force, so countries prefer to find their national solutions. And in that respect, why I'm saying this, because it depends on the institutional setup. What we have out of my head, of course, the countries have found different solutions. In the sense that, let me start with the fact that GDPR has derogation, so puts a special role for official statistics to do its daily work, not to exercise in the same way the 4 rights of the citizens. I mean, for example, we are used to do data surveys. We don't need to ask permission for people all the time. But what I know from the experience is that the biggest issue is with the secondary data sources. And now when we are speaking to have even more access to data sources, then the topic appears in a new way. Because very often we hear that people trust to the statistical offices, but they say, if you want to get access to the data from the tax office or from any other office, how will you guarantee that our data for statistical purposes will be protected? Or I remember, and I'm happy that Anil is here, because I remember when Statistics Canada so innovatively wanted to use the credit cards, if I'm not wrong, you were confronted with questions by the public why you are doing so. And I remember that we also had discussions to learn for exchanges, good practices informally from the 2 sides of the ocean to see how we could help you with some ideas or practices. So that's why it's why I'm saying this, because for me, it depends on the institutional setup. It's important that when there is an agreement or a body which deals with public sources, for example, administrative sources, the issue of the GDPR is on the agenda. It's in the memorandum, it's in institutional practice, in the discussion. Another point is that there should be collaboration between the statistical offices and the national protection authorities, because they are the first to understand and to be partners and to find together solutions. I have to admit something this morning when I was reading again the Irish strategy. On that part of data protection, I was thinking maybe I should ask again, Director Generals of Statistical Offices, isn't it time for me to show up to the Committee of the National Data Protection Officers, you know, that they meet regularly to exchange their good practices, to draw their attention to the role of official statistics and practical questions which we could solve. So this is an example how, in addition to the national good practices, we could raise some questions to the community of, to the European Data Protection Officer. He was visiting us, the previous one, in one of our committees. And then what I just wanted to stress is communication. Many statistical offices started to do an active communication on their websites in the context of GDPR, to repeat what we have been doing for 100 years, that we respect confidentiality, etc., how our work fits to GDPR. And of course, there are many practical questions which are really interpretation of the laws in the countries where if you are interested, of course, I could ask my colleagues, and Irish Statistical Office knows we have a person who is a contact person, and they have a regular meeting of a group of people from Statistical Office where you could get more information. But certainly it's a challenge, especially if we want to succeed with access to new data sources. We have to, this goes hand in hand with the addressing the issue of trust, and trust that we are able to keep confidentiality. And this brings us to the core values discussion.
Thank you, Mariana. Absolutely, I think that's that is a good note to end on, and a good challenge, and certainly it is something the National Statistics Board will be pursuing here in Ireland. We've had, it's like all things, when the when things are good, the 2 hours went by very, very quickly. It just remains for me to thank our speakers. Sincere thanks to Anil, to Orla, and to Mariana. It was just great to hear it all so succinctly, and it gives us in the National Statistics Board a lot of food for thought. One of the things that we're particularly going to be focused on is monitoring the strategy. The strategies, some they're an end, but they're actually the beginning, and we will be doing that and working. As I say, we have a very good relationship with Pádraig and his team, and we will work that. So genuine thanks to you. I'd also like to just take the opportunity before we sign off. These events and documents don't just happen, they don't come together all by themselves. People like me just have to rock up and log on, but others have to do the hard work. And in particular, I'd like to thank Secretary to the Board, Claire Hanley, for her huge work and enthusiasm and getting us to today. The report is published online, and it'll be very quickly, it'll be available if anybody wants it in hard copy as well. Just mail us and we'll sort that out. And I'd like to thank the team that worked with Claire today to put the report and today together. Anne-Marie Ryan, Dave Cummins, Ben Burstock, Conor O'Sullivan and Dave Lester. Thank you all very much, and I think it was a well worth while 2 hours. I certainly enjoyed it. I hope you did, and I hope you all have a very pleasant evening. Thank you very much.